What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So I wanted to talk a little Michigan, Ohio State. So we're less than 2 weeks away from the game, and I'm super pumped. It looks like both teams are going to be 11-0. So it'll be the first time they've both been 11-0 since the 2006 season. And what a thriller that was. And actually, when you go back, it wasn't really – it was a 3-point game, but it wasn't really necessarily that close, even though it was still a good game because, Michigan scored. They were down, what was it? They were down 14 late. I'm trying to remember. They cut it to 39-42. But anyways, yeah, they had a late touchdown, and they didn't get an onside kick, and they had just one timeout, and Ohio State got a first down to ice it. But point being, we could see a classic this year. 2016, that was another great game. Ohio State came away with the win, despite a controversial spot by JT Barrett. I'm not even going to go there, give my opinion on that, but I'll just leave it at that. Was a great game. I think everyone can agree on that. Even though as a Michigan fan, it was not a good outcome. Excuse me. And then, 2000 last year was a decent game. Michigan really imposed their will running the ball and really dominated the line of scrimmage as far as on offense is concerned. Ohio State did put up some points, but they just couldn't match Michigan's just willpower to run the ball and control the line of scrimmage in that game. So Michigan's got Illinois this week. They play Brett Bielema's squad. This should be a game where Michigan takes care of business. A lot of people are saying we'll see what McCarthy can do. I'd like to just see. I just want to come away from this game with everyone healthy. Same thing with Ohio State. You want to come away from this game. Ohio State plays Maryland. You want to come away with that game where everyone's healthy. You go out. You have a nice showing. No injuries. You want to go into the Michigan game if you're Ohio State, and then vice versa if you're Michigan, as healthy as possible. But, I don't think, a few weeks ago this was setting up. Michigan was going to be, this could be like a top 10 matchup, Michigan versus Illinois, but Illinois lost. So now it's, they're taking on a 6-3 Illinois team as opposed to an 8-1 Illinois team, like we thought we were going to see. But, should be, could be a decent game. You'll see if Illinois is competitive. We'll see how Illinois plays Michigan's offense, if they really try to, do everything possible to stack the box, take away the run game. Illinois has got some pretty good defenders. Witherspoon, the corner. Chase Brown, their running back. I'm not sure if he's going to play. Their quarterback's a pretty good player as well. So, we'll see. It's kind of funny, Illinois is kind of like a mini, like a poor man's Michigan, because they kind of want to try to, play the, run the football, play defense, create some turnovers. And then, Maryland's kind of like a mini Ohio State. They want to, throw the ball around the yard. They have some pretty good receivers, make some plays through the air. Their defense is okay. It's nothing spectacular, kind of like Ohio State, even though Ohio State has really stepped up their defense. So Michigan and Ohio State are kind of playing like the mini versions of themselves. That's why I think they should both take care of business. Maryland, Ohio State game may be a little tighter than most people think, but I think Ohio State will come away with at least probably a 10-point, or I'd say at least a 2-touchdown win. But don't be surprised if Maryland keeps this game close for a while and puts up some points on the board. Tualia Tagovailoa is a solid quarterback who's done some nice things, and they got a receiving core that could put some pressure on Ohio State's secondary. So we'll see how Ohio State and Maryland play out. But so Ohio State's defense, how's it better this year? Well, Michael Hall Jr. has been a big part of that, even though there's been some games. He hasn't played a lot of snaps, surprisingly. I'm not really sure why. But the guy that's really been disruptive in the middle, and that was something that they were missing last year in the Michigan game. They were missing that presence in the middle to, really hold anchor and not really, avoid Michigan from, dominating the middle of the, Ohio State's defense. So if Hall can be that guy that can help, create some havoc in the backfield and, rush the quarterback, I think he could be a true X factor in the game. JT Tuimoloau, if you're talking about, this is an interesting point Joel Klatt brought up last year. I remember he said it on the Herd that, Michigan finally in that game last year had the best defensive player on the field. And if I'm honest about it, Michigan has some good defensive players, Mike Morris, Junior Colson, DJ Turner, that could make a case as the best defensive player in this game. But if you're honest about it, probably the best defensive player in this game is JT Tuimoloau, Ohio State's, defensive end, who had a game of a lifetime against Penn State. Just, numerous turnovers he created. It really helped Ohio State pull away in that game. So Tuimoloau, likely the best player on that field in Columbus, November 26th when Michigan-Ohio State play. But if you're talking about who's got the best offensive player, and I'm not talking about NFL draft, I'm talking about the best college offensive player this season, with just this season in consideration, with how he impacts his team, how he makes his team better in this 2022 season, that's got to be Blake Corum is the best offensive player on the field. So you could argue that Michigan's got the best offensive player in Blake Corum as far as the heartbeat, the straw that stirs your drink, whatever analogy you want to use. Michigan likely got the best offensive player with Blake Corum, and then on Ohio State it's JT Tuimoloau. So, Tuimoloau has that game-wrecking ability. He could be Ndamukong Suh 09 against Texas. Other dominant defensive Tyrann Mathieu, the 2011 season, with the forced fumbles, the interceptions, punt returns. Chase Young for Ohio State a few years ago, the Bosa brothers, game-wrecking ability, big-time defensive players. JT Tuimoloau, if this game's close, he could be the guy that, just gets off a block late, hits McCarthy, and, could seal the deal. This is, in a game like this, the key sacks, the forced fumbles, the interceptions, just basically all the plays that Tuimoloau made against Penn State, are just amplified that much more in a game like this. I mean, you saw, speaking of the 2016 game, you saw how much turnovers can demoralize a team in this game. Michigan really was dominating that game. I mean, it was 17-7, and you had a Spate fumble, you had a Spate interception for a touchdown, and you had another Spate interception that set them inside the 20. Now, let's say you take away one of those plays and Michigan likely win. I know I shouldn't be playing this game, but I'm just trying to make a point that, those were so critical that just taking away one, likely two of those, and Michigan, breezes away with a win, no problem. I know I give credit to Ohio State that day, and looking back on it, Ohio State did have some NFL guys. Marshawn Lattimore, Malik Hooker, Jerome Baker. You saw Ohio State did have some dudes, so they were a good team that year. Mike Weber at running back, Curtis Samuel. Despite maybe those guys weren't necessarily good in the NFL, but good college players nonetheless. And Mike Weber, I believe broke, unless someone else broke it. Did have the most yards in Ohio State freshman running back history, most rushing yards. So I guess point being that Ohio State, looking back, did have some good players as far as the NFL draft is concerned. You always look that. I always find that fascinating because when you look at when a good team loses to another good team in a rivalry, and people made the case that Michigan had more talent, but looking back on it now that it's all played out, Ohio State did have some really good players in the showing in the National Football League too. So, credit Ohio State that day. They, found a way to win, and they found a way to just keep having small wins and just staying positive and kind of letting the brakes fall their way. So that's enough of the side rant about the 2016 game. Let's talk more about this game. So I thought that I'll just give him credit, and I'll just build off this point and discuss this point. So Joel Klatt said that Michigan brought up a great point, that Michigan does not want to get in a shootout with this game, and they do not want McCarthy to have to win him this game, because he has not really shown the ability to just drop back and pick a defense apart and just shred people down the field. You see he's missed some deep balls a lot this year. So if you get into a game where you really need J.J. McCarthy to pick apart a defense and make a lot of big plays and keep scoring, keep up the scoring pace in a track meet, then you're playing really right into Ohio State's game. So, yeah. And then Michigan's defense versus Ohio State's receivers is going to be super fun to watch. Jackson Smith and Jigba, will he play? First of all, that's a big question for this game. Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the best receiver in the country. You see what he can do with his size and athleticism. Him versus DJ Turner will be a matchup to watch. DJ Turner, you got to love DJ Turner because, a lot of college football people and a lot of Michigan fans say, well, DJ Turner's giving off some plays, touchdowns for Freckers. But what I love about DJ Turner is he's always in position to make a play. That's what's a key trait about corners. And when I talk about NFL draft and Chris Sims, how he evaluates corners, are you in a position to make a play is always key for corner. Especially when you're playing man-to-man coverage. Are you in a guy's hip pocket? Can you put yourself in a position where you're going to make a play? Sometimes a guy's just going to go up and come down with it over you. It's so hard to play man-to-man on an island versus a receiver, especially a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. You're going to lose that battle more often than not, But can you do some things to position your body to, get a tip pass, at least get a pass breakup, even if you don't come down with an interception? Can you do everything you can to break up the ball or, tip the ball in the air and get a turnover? And then, the other big question mark, can Ohio State run the ball in this game against Michigan? I think they can, but like in the last year's game, they didn't really. Ohio State, how successful they're running the ball is determined before the game. Meaning, last week I think they had the mindset they were going to come out and emphasize the run game, and they did a good enough job. But I think against Michigan, if they don't really emphasize it, which I don't know, maybe they still could win if they don't really have the run game clicking. But if they don't make an emphasis of it that week before in practice, and they don't stick with it early and often, then I think it could be, they could get themselves into some third and longs. If they get behind, they're playing catch up, and then the run game is abandoned. And, you have a bad half, and it could be demoralizing. So I'm going to wrap with that. Thank you guys so much for listening, and stay tuned until next time. Peace.